So, can you really eat intuitively while following the autoimmune protocol? When I first discovered the autoimmune protocol, or AIP, it was during the anti-diet movement and well into my journey of learning how to eat more intuitively. And I'm going to be honest with you, I struggled with this idea at first because I thought that following AIP would make me a traitor to the anti-diet movement. And as someone who has been negatively impacted by diet culture, I was really forced to ask myself, was AIP the healing protocol it said it was, or was it just another restrictive diet being disguised as a lifestyle change? And if that is a reality that you've been sitting with, you are in the right place. Hi, my name is Tomesha Campbell, and I'm the health coach behind What's Causing This, where I help women with unexplained symptoms understand what their body may be trying to tell them so that they can make more informed decisions without endless trial and error. And in part 1 of our AIP and Intuitive Eating series, we talked about what the autoimmune protocol is and whether it's just another elimination diet. And in part 2, we're going to expand upon that conversation to talk about what diet culture is, what intuitive eating is, and where intuitive eating doesn't align with AIP. And before I get ahead of myself, I want to note that I'm a health coach, but I am not necessarily your health coach unless you're one of my current clients. Even then, you're going to be receiving personalized care as a client, which is beyond the scope of this video. For that reason, the information I'm sharing is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with your physician with any medical questions you have and use the information provided at your own risk. Now that we've covered that very important disclaimer, let's dive into today's topic. What is diet culture? So for today's video, I'm going to be referencing the books Anti-Diet and the 4th edition of Intuitive Eating, which are available wherever books are sold. And I'm also going to link them below this video so you can grab copies for yourself. Now, Anti-Diet defines diet culture as a system of beliefs that equates thinness, muscularity, and particular body shapes with health and moral virtue, promotes weight loss and body reshaping as a means of attaining higher status, demonize certain foods and certain food groups while elevating others. It oppresses people who don't match its supposed picture of health. There is a lot to unpack in that definition, but there really are only 2 points that are most relevant to today's discussion. The first is that diet culture has convinced us to equate weight with health. The second, it tells us to divide foods into either good or bad. For example, carbohydrates have often been historically demonized, while protein is now the it girl in these macronutrient streets. And despite the real challenges, intuitive eating remains an anti-diet tool that many women have effectively used to combat diet culture. Now, what is intuitive eating? The 4th edition of the Intuitive Eating book describes the process of intuitive eating as trusting that you will be able to access all of the information you need by using all aspects of your brain, your reptilian instincts, your limbic connection with emotions, and your rational thoughts. Now that might sound like a mouthful, so if you're looking for a definition that could be helpful for you, the book's subtitle really does provide some context to define intuitive eating as an anti-diet approach that helps you make peace with food for yourself from chronic dieting and rediscover the pleasure of eating. So you accomplish this through the 10 principles of intuitive eating, which are reject the diet mentality, honor your hunger, make peace with food, challenge the food police, discover the satisfaction factor, feel your fullness, cope with your emotions with kindness, respect your body, movement, feel the difference, and honor your health, gentle nutrition. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, that is a lot, you are not wrong. And for those who have a history of chronic dieting, intuitive eating might feel like they've replaced one rule book for another. This shows that even an anti-diet approach can become another rule book if you approach it with a dieting mindset. And that's important to really recognize, because while research has found benefits associated with intuitive eating, that doesn't make it right for everyone. And for those in an autoimmune community, that raises the question, can you truly eat intuitively if you follow a lifestyle approach like AIP? So where AIP doesn't align with intuitive eating. I'm not going to go through all 10 principles, as there are some that do align well, which I will discuss further in part 3. But what I do want to point out is there are the 3 principles which conflict with AIP. Now, this isn't to say that there are reasons you shouldn't do an AIP. However, they are the things you should consider. The first is principle 1, reject the diet mentality. One of the biggest challenges with eating intuitively on AIP is holding on to the hope that this will finally be the thing that helps you lose weight. By definition, rejecting the diet mentality means rejecting the false hope that you simply haven't found the right diet that you will get quick, easy, and permanent weight loss from. So I know this might not be what you wanted to hear, but it's a reality that I do not want to sugarcoat. Because if weight loss is your primary goal, giving yourself unconditional permission to eat may feel uncomfortable, especially if your body changes in ways you were not hoping for. So if your weight increases, it can be easy to interpret it as a sign that you failed. Now, if you're feeling emotions coming up for you hearing this, know that this experience is common. Some clients I've worked with really struggle with the idea of rejecting the diet mentality because it meant giving up the body that diet culture promised. This is where having the right support system matters if you're looking to eat intuitively on AIP. That might include a registered dietitian, therapist, or other qualified healthcare professional who understands your health history and relationship with food. So do not hesitate to seek out support if needed. The second principle is 3, make peace with food. Another challenge you will face eating intuitively on AIP is navigate the feelings of deprivation and cravings that can build up during the elimination phase. Because as explained in part 1, the elimination phase is the period of 30 to 90 days when specific foods are temporarily removed as part of the protocol. That's where AIP and intuitive eating conflict, as intuitive eating emphasizes unconditional permission to eat. In comparison, AIP temporarily asks you to not to eat certain foods during the elimination phase. That said, if food restriction has previously contributed to binge eating, intense cravings, or other disordered eating behaviors, it's understandable to be cautious about AIP. That's where support from a qualified professional trained in disordered eating or even an eating disorder can help in determining if a restrictive protocol is appropriate for you. The third principle is principle 4, challenging the food police. Now, a challenge that may arise when you're aiming to eat intuitively on AIP is guilt when you consume foods during the elimination phase that you're supposed to avoid. Now, intuitive eating encourages you not to police your food choices, while AIP does require you to temporarily monitor and limit certain foods during the elimination phase. Now, during the elimination phase, you're regularly tracking your baseline symptoms to determine if you're experiencing measurable improvements. This is how you determine if you're going to start the reintroduction phase in 30 days, which I explained in depth during part 1, or if you're going to push it closer to 90 days. However, monitoring what you eat so closely is the opposite of challenging the belief that foods shouldn't be described in moralistic terms. So even if you eat foods you later discover don't work well for your body, this is not a reason to feel guilty. This is information that you can use to make more informed food choices in the future. So we've covered a lot today. What diet culture is, what intuitive eating is, and 3 intuitive eating principles that don't align well with AIP. So you might be wondering what's the takeaway from this. Restriction doesn't automatically equal diet culture. However, restriction can absolutely create diet culture behaviors. So that might leave you thinking you can't eat intuitively while following AIP. Now, before you put your stake in the ground, part 3 looks at the other side of this conversation, where AIP and intuitive eating can actually work together. So make sure you're subscribed to What's Causing This so you don't miss out on part 3. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in our next video.